when you look at the upcoming fixture list, and you have Palace, and then you have Sunderland, both Capital One Cup ties with Sheffield United, West Brom, we're not going up against, Chelsea with maybe an older attack, not older, but they're more rigid in what they want to do. And it seems that having a strong defensive midfield rather than a box-to-box defensive midfield worked. But it seems like with these upcoming fixtures where you have other teams that are just as young as we are, you almost need a box-to-box guy, and I think we're going to miss Bentaleb and Mason in that regard.
Well, I mean, I don't. Would you really categorize either one of those guys as box to box? Maybe Mason more so than Bentaleb, but
yeah, but I think they both run their socks off, and Bentaleb never gets tired.
Well, I think any midfielder in our system is going to be running their socks off, right? I mean, that's just part of the system.
But I don't see Paulinho doing that.
Well, that's why and that's
or
why
Stambouli, for that matter.
But think about when he's been brought in. He's been brought in to protect leads, right? I mean, to that end, to really add a greater defensive element to the squad. So, and that's been I think the challenge with Dembele is that he's brilliant holds the ball up just unbelievably well. I mean, trying to get the ball away from him looks like quite a challenge, but he just hasn't been pressing maybe as much as we've needed at times, and maybe that's why Mason's had the nod. I mean, Mason probably is more of a forward-thinking midfielder than all three of them, but I don't know that's saying a whole lot.
I don't know. It just makes me wonder if it's going to cause us to look into the pool and try to get a center defensive mid. You can go out and get a regular center mid or whatever the case may be, but I think we really still need somebody who's just defensively minded in that regard, because it seems like the place that we suffer the most is getting the support in front of the back four. I mean, I think if we don't do anything else, I'd rather us just not buy anybody, because I don't think the striker is the need. I think we're okay with, if Kane wasn't having the season he's having, obviously it would be, and we're an injury away from being decimated, really, in that regard. I think we need some kind of cover for him, but I don't think it's our greatest need. I still think that something in that defensive midfield to protect that back four a little better, and Lloris for that matter, is what's really needed.
Well, we it wasn't that long ago we were banging for a striker, and I think even another centre back.
Yeah.
But before we went on air, we were talking about Fazio and Vertonghen's amazing record. Was it one loss in their partnership of 15 games?
Correct.
Unbelievable.
And that one loss, Fazio was sent off. So.
Yeah, and his debut at home against Man City.
So it's funny how things have come full circle, and now we're looking at, well, what really are our needs?
Yeah. We need a goalkeeper.
Yeah, he's shit, that Lloris.
Terrible.
We've got Yedlin coming in. We still don't know what's going to happen there. So, while Walker is still trying to get his fitness back to 100%, we're still light on cover there because Norton, I don't think, has seen much of the grass for a while.
Mm-hmm. Come on. Yedlin's the be-all, end-all there.
Yeah. Could we have an attacking midfielder? Maybe. What if Eriksen goes out injured? Who fills in for him?
Oh, dear God. Yeah.
Don't say that. I think Lamela can quite easily slide into that role that he's doing, that Eriksen's doing. So I think we're okay there.
Yeah.
But it's nice to have that luxury of attacking midfielders come number 10s, so to speak. So I don't know. I mean, we're in this weird state of where everything's coming together and players are performing a lot better within the system we want to see. I think Poch has figured it out more of getting Eriksen in the hole and not putting him out wide.
Yeah.
Having Chadley back, I mean, he was an absolute beast against Chelsea.
Yeah.
Best game in a Spurs shirt for him by far.
Unbelievably, he was.
Townsend, still not convinced he had a good game. I mean, he obviously scored the penalty, which I must admit I thought he was going to miss it.
Yeah.
But he faded second half.
Yeah.
Yeah. Didn't make any big mistakes, and I think when he's in there, that's I sort of cross my fingers and just pray, that he doesn't do that, and he didn't. So, and I think the speed was helpful, but I don't know that he really created a whole lot. I think he was involved in the first goal marginally, but that was
Yeah. And I know we've kind of morphed into the topic of the transfer window again, and we mentioned last week that Lennon is out of favour. Clearly, I saw his name linked to I think West Brom today with Peter Crouch as two of Pulis's targets. And again, just our luck. We've got Palace and West Brom in our next two away fixtures with brand new managers. So again, just something we need to be fully aware of. But I just don't know what's going on with Lennon.
Yeah, it does seem that he is out of favor, and I think that he was playing really well up until he didn't see the field anymore. I think that's what's kind of a little dumbfounding. So something's going on in training. Maybe there's a little rift between him and Pochettino over something different that the common folk like us are not going to know about.
Right.
Or because it seems like everybody that you would think we would look to sell, you'd be showcasing them right now, and we're not with him.
Yeah. So good question is, will he play tomorrow? Will he start against West Brom? If West Brom are after him, and there's any dialogue that's occurred between the clubs, then he wouldn't start, because obviously West Brom won 7-0 yesterday, so they're in the draw for the fourth round, and any additions they'd want. Again, teams at the wrong end of the table have a tendency to not take the FA Cup seriously. Burnley have already said it for tomorrow, which I don't believe for a minute, but any player that we're looking to sell, I don't know whether being cup tied is an option for those clubs. Again, we're not going to know that stuff.
And the fine line is not disrupting the chemistry that it has taken 6 months to build to get to this point. We've seen a slow progression of, man, this really stinks. I don't know what he's doing. I think he's using the wrong formation.
Right.
And watch Twitter.
Levy
out. And you watch Twitter and social media, Facebook, the whole bit go into a complete meltdown to everybody on social media singing the praises of the club, singing the praises of Pochettino. Now is Levy some kind of uber genius, and that he's going to have the new Northumberland Park become part of an NFL franchise in London. That got mentioned this week. And it would just be even more revenue for the club if that happened, because we own that building. So,
don't think it'll happen, but it's a brilliant idea. It's great business.
It's so knee-jerk and very Spursy, I guess you could say, from the fan base. And I'm not, running anybody into the ground about this or demeaning anybody, but how fickle are football fans in that regard, that it can turn just like that from your shit to you are the god of gods now, in terms of Pochettino and possibly in terms of Levy. But when we go into this transfer window business, we really need to be careful not to disrupt the chemistry that's being built. And if we don't make a move and we say we're going to try to do this with what we have, I think I might be okay with that. I don't think there's anything so glaring that we just absolutely have to spend money.
It's a fascinating window. It's always an interesting window because of the short time period, and for all of those points that you've just made, it creates an even greater dynamic by way of, well, what do we really need? And now we've got good chemistry, and players are playing because we've allowed things to sort of unfold. And I talked about it last week, and you guys made great counterpoints where I said, well, Poch did say that he was kind of happy with what he's got, and I respected your comments about there's probably a posturing set of comments that he made, but you look at the performances and maybe there's something to that.
Yeah, it worries me with the amount of fixtures we have. We're still in every competition. We're now losing let's face it, two starting midfielders are not going to be there. The guys have said, the players I'm talking about, Danny Rose I think mentioned it in an interview this week, that the competition to get in the starting 11 is so fast and furious that once someone makes that cut, they perform at the highest of levels, or at least that's what they're trying to do.
Yep. And we talked about that with the competition with him and Ben Davis, and I thought Davis was going to get the start. And by God, Danny Rose, with the exception of being schooled, once that led to a goal, he played very, very well.
Yeah,
very
you could literally come out and say, he played a blinder against one of the best defensive. Midfield or best offensive midfielders rather in the world.
Yeah, who hasn't Hazard torn up this year? Yeah, everybody. He's destroyed everybody.
Exactly.
So that's going to happen.
And he got a goal on the other end. He got turned upside down in the process. And no one's happier than he is. I guarantee you no one's happier than he is.
And in fairness to Poch, that ended up being a brilliant selection just by way of his athleticism and the conditioning that he was in. He was flying up and down that pitch, and very much, a lot of what we did came from the left side, and came from just the beginning of our 18, and him distributing the ball and moving up, and he was very, very good. Very good.
I just think the squad is what the squad is. We're never going to be City. We're never going to be Chelsea. It's we need to really look at everything and decide, for ourselves as fans, are we going to be satisfied if we don't make a move? And for me, it's yes. I think we'll be okay.
I think this Rabiot discussion, where I didn't really know much about him and just sort of thought nah. But it's actually kind of clever, because the discussion is it's a 6-month loan, which doesn't really put us under any obligation. He's Phil. He is a little bit more offensive minded, and there's places that you can use him. He can rest other players, and it's sort of an inexpensive, non-committal way to fill a spot. And I was like, well, look, I mean, PSG gets all of the optionality, right? If he's any good, they'll keep him. But I'm not so sure that's the case. That might be a very inexpensive way to get a bunch of optionality and maybe find a striker.
See, I got to look at this as the complete opposite of how we loan our players out. We loan our players out to get experience, certainly the younger lads, the under-21s, the academy guys. Is that what PSG is doing? They're loaning someone out to get him experience, because I don't think he's going to come in and take valuable minutes away from our more experienced midfielders to get that experience. So is it a player that we're interested in, that we have that option to buy? And if that's the case, then certainly he's going to expect to see more minutes. So.
Well, there are many that rate him. He's a young lad. He's a box-to-box player, and he's supposedly very good. But they're under financial fair play constraints. So this might be an opportunity for them to showcase him, get a nice sexy fee, and get him off the books. But he's not under big wages, and his mom's his agent evidently, and there's a battle between her and the club, and so. Well,
and without a link to back it up, I'm looking at Twitter as we're doing this, and West Coast Spurs is tweeting out that the Adrien Rabiot rumors are heating up. First he's going to Tottenham, now he's staying at PSG. So it's that time of year. It's silly season for a month, and we're
then you
going
get
to
Van der Vaart.
Yeah, he'll have come and gone to probably 3 different clubs by the time February.
Right, and the other thing to remember is PSG is owned by the same Qatari consortium that was thinking of supposedly bidding for us. Right?
Yes. Oh, they're going to buy us, right?
Yeah, that's gone. That one. We haven't heard anything on that for about 3 weeks now.
Right, so technically he'll still be their player.
Yeah.
Yeah, technically. All right, so let's peel away from that a little bit. I want to talk about the Burnley match, the FA Cup, and kind of maybe dedicate some time to talking about the history of the FA Cup. Tottenham have won it 8 times, and there's a lot. I've never really watched us have a great cup run. So again, other than reading books and folklore and video. So from you two, I really want to hear the greatest successes, the biggest surprises, the biggest disappointments, that type of thing. And Simon, I want to start with you on this one.
Sure. Well, when I became a Spurs fan, we'd already won the FA Cup 5 times. 01, 21, 61, 62, 67. And we won in all 5 finals we went to, and that continued for the next couple. I remember vividly 81 and 82. I was living in Somerset, unfortunately. But I remember watching the games. Both went to a replay, and, Steve Perryman was one of, I think, the only second captain ever to live back-to-back FA Cups, and the only one to do it prior was Danny Blanchflower 20 years earlier. I'm not sure if that is unique in all of the FA Cup history, but certainly that is a pretty good record for Tottenham. One of my worst memories of the FA Cup is actually the one defeat that we've suffered in the final FA Cup final, and that was the Coventry game. That was our fantastic 86-87 team. Clive Allen scored 49 goals. In fact, his 49th was in the first 5 minutes of that game, and the script was already being written, and the engraver was already starting to write Tottenham on the cup, and then it just went Pete Tong after that. And people talk about we wore a new Hummel kit that that game. Half the players had Holston on their shirts, half didn't. So there was a bit of a furore and kerfuffle about that in the